Hello and good morning, friends. Welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, with another lecture on human resource management. Today we would be talking on employees' welfare in the first session, and in the second half we would be discussing on statutory provision concerning employee welfare. And for this very discussion, we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Namita Rajput. Dr. Namita Rajput is Associate Professor in Department of Commerce, Sri Aurobindo College, and as we always say that she is a dynamic professor who believes to give more and more what she has experienced throughout her life. So, dear friends, without wasting any time, we would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Namita Rajput. Dr. Rajput, welcome to the EduSet lecture.
Thank you. So, good morning, viewers. So, today I am going to take up a very important topic called employee welfare. Now, if we see the Indian conditions and if we see and compare the Indian conditions across the globe, you find the amazing gap and a big gap in which the employee welfare is really absent when you see the Indian conditions and if we see they compare to the global condition. So, there is an important need to embed the employee welfare provisions in our acts so that they feel happy and motivated when they are working in the industry, because industrial workers, when you take a good survey of Indian conditions of the workers, it is not at all good. So there is a strong need for the Indian provisions to be expanded, broadened, and many laws are to be passed these days so that we are having a very good and a good position in terms of their standard of living, etc. And the employee welfare is attained to the maximum extent. So under this backdrop, I will be starting now with my presentation called employee welfare. So let us have a look on the concept of the employee welfare. In India, the industrial workers today constitute a very important part of the production process, and they also add extensively to the country's economy. But if we take a survey of the living and the working conditions of the workers in our country, the need for and the necessity of the labor welfare in India would proximately become very obvious. The welfare facilities have become the essential and counter the handicaps to which the workers are exposed and to provide prospects and amenities for the development of workers. So we have seen in this particular slide that if you actually take a survey on the conditions of the Indian workers, there is a lot of problem in terms of extending the employee welfare activities to these employees. And of course, the welfare facilities are, there is an inadequacy of these kind of facilities in India. Now let us have a definitional aspect of what welfare means. The welfare means faring and doing well. It is an all-inclusive term and refers to the physical, mental, moral, emotional well-being of an individual. Welfare is fundamentally an attitude of mind on the part of the management, influencing the method in which management activities are undertaken. Employers concerned with introducing or extending the welfare programs now or in the future must be concerned not only with the past and the current experience, but the developing trends. Now, when you see this kind of a definition of the welfare, we take into considerations many different aspects and domains of the welfare. Number one, we take the physical welfare. That is all the, the conditions are, doing good in terms of their physical and it is not affecting their physical conditions at all. Then we take the mental, that is the work culture is such that it gives a mental peace of mind to the workers. And then we have a moral and emotional well-being, because if the individual is not emotionally balanced, it is definitely going to have a very negative spillover on the productivity of the organization and in turns would hamper the productivity and profitability of an organization. So welfare includes all the different spectrum and domains and the frontiers of the well-being of an individual, so which covers again the physical, mental, emotional and moral conditions of an individual. So not only this, there has to be a positive change in the mindsets of the management. That is, they should see from the empathetic point of view that yes, the workers also need these kind of activities, and the welfare is definitely a core and the essential part of their policy framework. And if it is not there, of course, the absence of which is going to give a lot of dissatisfaction to the workers, which should not be there. So there is a growing global trends in this regard that yes, employee welfare is going to be given lot of importance and so on and so forth. So trend must be your friend, should be an attitude of the management, and they should adopt this kind of an attitude with the open arms, and they should welcome all these kind of activities which is going to have a very positive mindset and effect on the overall well-being of an individual. So now what is the concept of the welfare? Welfare comprises anything that is done for the comfort, improvement, development of employees, and it is provided over and above the wages. It helps in keeping the morale and motivation of an employee high so as to retain them for longer duration. The welfare measures need not in monetary terms but also in any kind of or any form. It includes monitoring of working conditions, creation of industrial harmony through infrastructure for health, insurance against diseases, accidents, and unemployment for employees and their families. So this particular slides has very much important points, so I would be discussing them one by one. So let us have this thing that when you talk about the employee welfare, it is something which is an add-on to their wages. That is, if they are getting about maybe 15,000 in a month or 10,000 in a month, so welfare activity would be over and above. So everyone must have this kind of an understanding that the employee welfare activities is always over and above the wages which the worker is getting. Secondly, if the welfare activities are more and if the employee welfare is the locus of the point or the nucleus of the point of the management, of course it is going to have a very positive mindsets. The workers would be motivated and their morale would be high, and eventually the result will be on the rise in the production levels. Next is the welfare can take either in the form of monetary, or it can also take any form in form of a kind, or in terms of cash, or any kind of other benefit which you can extend to your employees. So it need not necessarily be in terms of cash. Then of course, when you monitor the working conditions and you create a good atmosphere, a congenial atmosphere, a feeling of a co-partnership, you extend some kind of health insurance to your employees. So all these activities tantamount to and are under one umbrella called employee welfare. So you can understand this concept very nicely, that this welfare can be in any form, either in cash or in kind. It can be in terms of the industrial harmony also. It can take a shape of some kind of working conditions, good working conditions also, or creation of these working conditions also. Then it can also extend to some giving of the insurance facilities to your employees, so that they have you are extending some kind of accident benefits to them. Then unemployment for the employees and their families also, allowances to them also. Then the good infrastructure for the health facilities also to the employees or to their family members. So this term is quite extensive and broaden, so it can take any form and shape, maybe in cash or in kind, but there has to be one thing, that it is always over and above the wages. Now, what is the significance of the employee welfare is the biggest question which comes to the mind of many people. That is, why do we give the employee welfare to the employees at large, and what is the basic significance of it? So let us have a look on this. In India, the labor welfare has a special importance, as the Indian Constitution provides for the promotion of welfare of the labor for human conditions of work and securing to all the workers. The numerous welfare measures provided to the employees will have instantaneous impact on the health, physical and the mental effectiveness, alertness and overall efficiency of the workers, and thus contributing to their higher productivity. The social security measures provided by the employer will act as a protection to the workers. So in this particular thing, we understand that the Indian Constitution is also not far behind, and it also extends a very important role in giving some kind of good benefits to the employees' welfare. Not only this, it gives a very positive mindset on the mental health of the employee, that yes, the employer is also there who is taking care of their families, their needs, etc. And not only this, they feel very protected, and this protection environment is also very important, which extends some kind of a mental satisfaction to the employees. They feel motivated and their production moves high. Now coming forward to the same part, that is the significance of the employee welfare further. Let us have a look on this. Labor welfare means activities designed and aimed for the promotion of the economic, social and cultural well-being of the employees. It includes both statutory as well as non-statutory undertakings by the employers, trade unions and both the central and the state government for the physical and the mental growth of the workers. So here we understand that yes, the labor welfare is designed to aim for the promotion of economic and social welfare and the cultural welfare well-being of the employees, and of course it has both aspects, the statutory as well as the non-statutory requirements and the undertakings for the employers, which extend a lot of protective environment in terms of the employee welfare to the people. Now, employee welfare enables the employees to have a richer and more satisfying life. It raises their standard of living by dipping the burden onto their pockets. It promises a sense of belongingness among the employees, averting them from resorting to unhealthy practices like absenteeism, labor unrest, strikes, etc. The welfare measures also improves the relationship between the employees and the employers. It promotes a real change in the heart and the change of the outlook on the part of both the employers and the employees. So we can see here that if the employee welfare is given lot of importance by the management, then of course it is going to have a very important effect on their mindsets. Number one, it extends them a good satisfying life, that yes, they are in right hands and the people of the management or the management overall is really taking care of their life and so on and so forth. And not only this, it also helps them in raising their standards of living, and of course there is less burden on their pockets because they are not spending out of their pockets, and these are extended by the management onto their employees. And not only this, when you take care of their needs, the vital needs of the employees, so the kind of activities which are very pertinent in the Indian framework, that is going on strikes and lockouts and resorting to very unhealthy practices, they stop coming to the offices, that is the absenteeism, they are uprooted automatically. So the absenteeism goes down, the unrest goes down, and overall there is a positive environment across the factory and across the industries, and they feel like coming to the organization because they feel that yes, the management is their own counterpart and they feel associated very closely to the organization. And the welfare also improves the industrial relations, that is the relationship of the employer and the employees, and it also promotes a kind of a change in their heart and they feel like doing for the employees. Now, what are the reasons for the employee welfare activities in India? So, let us have a look on what is the Indian conditions owing to which they are actually putting a lot of efforts as far as the employee welfare is concerned. The first is it increases the efficiency of the employees. Employee welfare activities increases in efficiency of the employees. It helps in developing the feeling of dedication among them. And due to the increase in efficiency, the production and productivity of the enterprise also increases substantially. Second is, it is very helpful in reducing the stake of poverty among the employees, because most of the employees in our country are unable to providing for the basic necessities for themselves and for their families. And this is due to extreme poverty among the Indian labor and employees. Employee welfare activities plays a very important role in reducing the poverty and in providing the necessary amenities to the employees. Next is, it also helps in establishing the organizational peace. Now, as I told you in the beginning also, that if the basic needs and the amenities and everything is taken care of the management, then automatically the unhealthy practices are uprooted and there is an organizational peace. The workers also feel like coming and the management is also feel like doing for the employees. So there is a good situation for both, a win-win situation for both the employer as well as for the employee. The next is, it is very helpful in reducing the rate of absenteeism and the labor turnover. In India, the rate of absenteeism and the labor turnover is much higher as compared to the developed countries, and the labor welfare activities helps in reducing the absenteeism and the labor turnover as it makes employees feel well settled at one place. Now see, there is a kind of a feeling of changing and hopping from one organization to another. Now this kind of a feeling is there because if they feel dissatisfied working in an organization, or if they feel that their needs are not fulfilled in their organization, or they're having some kind of a monetary problem in terms of getting the salary etc. or the wages etc. from that organization. But yes, if the management is having an attitude of giving and extending all kind of activities to them in terms of satisfying on their monetary grounds, then of course this kind of a feeling is automatically uprooted. So they would not like to shift from A organization to B organization or to C organization. They feel very happy working in an organization. They feel like coming to the organization and working and putting their heart and soul for a rise in their productivity and other essential parts of the organization. So hence the absenteeism goes down and the labor turnover also goes down, and if both the parameters are going down, it shows a very healthy parameter for the organization, because both the two things are not good for the organizational health. Now, what are the principles of labor welfare? Now, there are certain fundamental principles that are involved in the concept of employee welfare, and they are very important as a human resource management student for you to understand that what are the basic principles behind following a labor welfare activities. The first is a principle of social responsibility. Now, as you all know, the concept of the social responsibility has gained importance across the globe, and Indian country is perhaps the only country which is having a legal the parameter behind it, that every organization whose turnover is X amount, or they have to spend about 2% of their profits on this, or if their turnover is this much, again they have to spend X amount of this. So we are not having any choice but to spend on the social and the welfare activities. So because of this principle of social responsibility towards the society social responsibility means the obligations of the organization to follow those policies and to take up those decisions and to follow those actions that are desired in terms of objectives and the values prevalent in the society. This principle is based on the social conception of organization and its role in the society. It is assumed that employee welfare is an expression of an organizational obligation towards its employees. An organization is expected to win the cooperation from the employees, provide them job security, fair wages and equal opportunity, personal growth, advancement, and provide them with all the welfare activities. Now, since you understand that the corporate social responsibility is revolving around all the different stakeholders of the society, and employee is a very important stakeholder of the organization. So it is the prime responsibility of the management to take care of this aspect, that they're given the best working conditions, they should be given the fair wages, and the personal growth and advancement aspects are also highlighted in this regard, and also the welfare facilities are provided to them. So this was the first principle. Now let us have a look on the second principle, the principle of democratic values. This principle concedes that the employees may have certain unmet needs and the organization has an obligation to render them help in satisfying those needs, and the employees have a right to determine the manner in which these needs can be met. The underlying assumption to this principle is that employee is a mature and rational individual who is capable of taking the decisions for himself. So this is a very important concept of principle of democratic values, which are kept behind and which is under the backdrop of framing any kind of employee welfare policies framework for the organization. Next, we have principle of adequacy of wages. Now this principle implies that employee welfare measures are not a substitute of wages. It will be corrected to argue that since employees are given a variety of labor welfare services, they need to be paid low wages. Right to adequate wages to employees is beyond dispute. So there is a common conviction across the globe that yes, if the employees are putting their best efforts to raise the level of productivity in the organization, so there is no debate in this regard that they should be given less amount of wages. So adequacy of wages is one thing which is having a strong conviction across the globe that yes, they should be given the adequacy of wages in terms and the proportion of work taken by them. Then we have a principle of efficiency. Let us have a look on this. This principle lays stress on the statement to cultivate welfare is to cultivate efficiency. It has to be often stated that employees' education and training, housing and diet are three most significant aspects of employee welfare, which always put emphasis on employee efficiency. Now we have a principle of co-responsibility. Now this principle states that if the management has a responsibility towards giving the adequacy of the wages, similarly the employees also have to fulfill their obligation and the responsibilities which have been delegated to them. So that is why we say that this is a principle of co-responsibilities, that is all the responsibility role which are extended to both employer and employee, they must fulfill and it should be must clearly understood by both the parties. Next we have a principle of totality of welfare. This principle of employee welfare is that the concept of employee welfare must pervade throughout the hierarchy of an organization and recognized at all levels of functionaries in the organization. So there has to be a very clear cut conception in their mind of the people that yes, the employee welfare activity is a totality concept and should be present at all levels of hierarchy, may it a lower level, may it be at a middle level or at a top level management, because this kind of a feeling, if it prevails, it is definitely a good concept for the organization and it has to be at all levels. Then we have a principle of repersonalization. Now the development of human personality is recognized as a goal of industrial welfare, which according to this principle should counter the baneful effects of the organizational system. So thus it is essential to implement the employee welfare facilities both inside and outside the organization, that is provide intramural and extramural employee welfare facilities. So this principle is also about extending the welfare activities not only within the organization but also across all the organization. Then we have a principle of coordination or integration. This principle plays a very active role in the success of welfare services, and welfare is an aggregate concept, that is coordinated approach which promotes the healthy development of employees in his work, home and society. So this is vital for the sake of harmony and continuity of the employee welfare facilities. Now let us talk about the agencies for the employee welfare. The various agencies are there which are responsible for the employee welfare. First is the central government. So the central government has made elaborate provisions for the healthy, safety and welfare under the Factories Act 1948, under the Mines Act 1952, and these acts provide for facilities of canteen, crèche, restrooms, etc. The next important body is the state government. As we have seen in the central government, it has passed many provisions in relation of passing certain acts of the the Factories Act of 1948 and the Mines Act of 1952. They are very important in terms of extending the welfare and the safety measures to the employees in this regard. And then we have a state government. The government in different states and the union territories are also responsible for passing certain acts and laws in this regard, which gives and extends the welfare and the safety measures to the employees at large. Then we have the employers. Then from organization to organization, the employer also extends certain safety measures to the employees. And of course, then we have the trade unions. Trade unions are also one of the representatives of the workers. And of course, when the welfare activities are ignored by the trade unions conviction, then of course the management and the industrial relationship as such, that is the relationship between the management and the employees, would be at a problem, because the trade unions, they feel that they are a part and the parcel and the representatives of the workers. Then we have other agencies like YMCA, Seva Sadan societies and other NGOs which are also responsible for the employee welfare. So now, till now we have seen that there are so many agencies like the state government and the central government, then we have the employers, we have the trade unions, and then we have the other agencies also which are responsible for, extending the safety and the welfare activities of the employees. Now let us have a quick look on what are the types of employee welfare. So when you talk about the types of employee welfare, we have two types. One is a monetary and the other is a non-monetary. So as the name suggests, the monetary aspects is centering around the monetary parameters, and the non-monetary aspects is for the things which is other than the cash. So let us have a quick look on this. The statutory welfare schemes are there which are following the provisions. So statute means that there is some act which has been passed by the parliament, by the special act of the parliament, which states that every organization must have the drinking water. They should have the facility of sitting, because the human beings cannot stand for so long, because there is a loss of energy when you stand. And then the first aid appliances must be present in the factory and whatever office they are working into, because any time you can require the first aid facilities for the employees, which also has not only the bandages and the creams, but also some kind of extra medicines which really help the human beings to restore their physical health. And then we have the urinals, because it's a nature's call and they should be very closely associated and placed near the working place of the organization. Then you must have the canteen facilities, because the human beings, they feel hungry and thirsty, and to restore the energy you need the canteen facilities also. Then you should have the spit rooms, you should have a complete lighting in terms of having the good working conditions. Then you should have the washing places, and then you should have the changing rooms, the restrooms, because these things are very mandatory under the statute that every organization must have all these things. Then we must have the non-statutory welfare schemes, which includes the personal health care. Then you should have the facilities of having the flexible timings, in which the flexibility is given to the workers to change their shifts, or some kind of flexibility in time is extended to them. Then we must have the employee assistance program, in which the employees must be given some kind of counseling if they need. Then you should have the harassment policy, which is also very prevalent these days, that sexual harassment at workplace is very prevalent, and you see so many cases happening around in the daily newspapers of today. So they must have very clear-cut provisions in relation to the harassment policy. Then you must have the maternity leave and the adoption leave in case of the female employees, and the paternal leave for the males. And then you should have the Mediclaim insurance schemes. These are all non-statutory which I am talking about. So the employee referral schemes must also be there. So I hope this session must have given you a lot of insights of what employee welfare is, what are the provisions of it, what is the importance of it, what agencies are responsible for extending the welfare, and what are the types of the welfare. So in the second half I would be talking about all these statutory acts which are little technical in nature, but yes, you must know, because shortly you have to join the workforce and you must understand what are the provisions, the legal provisions which are available under the various acts of the parliament which have been passed in the Indian context, and what are the basic provisions under which the safety and the other measures are extended to the welfare of the workers. Thank you so much. Hello friends, so in this part of my lecture I would be concentrating on the statutory provisions concerning the employee welfare. Now as you all know that in India we have a judicial supremacy, and all the acts and different various the statutory acts which have been passed in the Indian context, they play a very vital role, because nobody can bypass these acts and the rules. So let us have a look on this, that what are the statutory provisions concerning the employee welfare in the Indian regard. So the first is the Factories Act 1948. The Factories Act 1948 includes the following provisions. The first is the washing facilities, that is, in every factory, adequate and suitable facilities for washing shall be provided and maintained for the use of the workers therein. The separate and the adequate screened facilities shall be provided for the use of male and female workers. Such facilities shall be conveniently accessible and shall be kept clean. The next is the state government. The state government may, in respect of any factory or class or description of factories or in any manufacturing process, prescribes the standards of adequate and suitable facilities for the washing. So, in terms of the facilities for washing, now we have a facilities for storing and the drying clothes. The state government may, in respect of any factory or the class or facilities of factories, make rules regarding the provisions thereby of suitable places for keeping the clothes not worn during the working hours and for drying of the wet clothes. The next is the facilities for sitting. Every factory must have the suitable arrangements for sitting, shall be provided and maintained by all the workers obliged to work in a standing position in order that they may take the advantage of any opportunities for rest which may occur in the course of the time. So till now we have seen that there must be a facility for the washing for male and females, then we must have a facility for storing and the drying of the clothes, and then we have the facilities of the sitting also, because there is a human capacity that you cannot sit for so long. So the adequate arrangements for the sitting must be provided to all the workers who are working in the organization. Then if in the opinion of the chief inspector, in the workers in any factory engaged in a particular manufacturing process or working in a particular room are able to do their work efficiently in a sitting position, he may by order in writing require the occupier of the factory to provide before a specified date such sitting arrangements as may be practicable for all the workers so engaged or working. Then if the state government may by notification in the official gazette declare the provisions of the subsection 1 shall not apply to any specified factory or class or description of the factories or to any specified manufacturing process. So we have seen here that the government takes key role in fixing up of all these facilities in the factory, because in the factory the conditions are very, very difficult and the workers, they face a lot of problems if they do not have the washing facilities, drying of the clothes facilities, sitting facilities, etc. Then we are human beings, so medical emergencies can always take place any time. So the next is the first aid appliances must be present in all the organizations. So they shall in every factory be provided and maintained so as to readily accessible during all the working hours the first aid boxes and the cupboard equipped with prescribed content, and the number of such boxes or the cupboards to be provided and maintained should not be less than 1 for every 150 workers ordinarily employed in the factory. So we have here a specified limit, and the facilities must be provided according to the statutory provisions which are present in the Act, and nothing except the prescribed content shall be kept in the first aid box or cupboard. So what should be the composition of the first aid box is also mentioned in the Act, and every organization has to be abide by it. Each first aid box or the cupboard shall be kept in charge of a separate responsible person who holds a certificate in first aid treatment recognized by the state government, and who shall always be readily available during the working hours of the factory. In every factory wherein more than 500 workers are ordinarily employed, there should be provided and maintained an ambulance room of the prescribed size containing the prescribed equipment and in charge of such medical and nursing staff as may be prescribed, and those facilities shall also be readily available during the working hours of the factory. So here we have seen the insights of the statutory provisions concerning the welfare of the organization, that what the first of all this first aid box must be present, and then what should be the composition of the first aid box is also mentioned in the statutory provision. Then who shall be responsible for holding the first aid box is also being mentioned, that the certificate must be there by a certified state government institution. Only then that person will be vested with the responsibility of holding the first aid boxes. Then of course the ambulance facilities, and because medical emergencies, they do not see the time and the place, they can happen anytime. So all the adequate arrangements in relation to the first aid box and the ambulance must be done straight according to the statutory provisions which have been passed by the central and the state governments. The next is your canteen. The state government may make rules regarding that in any specified factory wherein more than 250 workers are ordinarily employed, with the canteen or canteen shall be provided by maintained by the occupier for the use of the workers. Without the prejudice to the generality of the foregoing power, such rules may provide for the date by which the such canteen shall be provided, the standards in respect of the construction, accommodation, furniture and other equipment of the canteen, the food stuff to be served therein and the charges which may be made therefore, the constitution of the managing committee for the canteen and the representation of the workers in the management of the canteen, and the delegation of the chief inspector subject to such conditions may be prescribed of the power to make the rules under clause C. So we have seen in this part of my lecture, which is little technical and lot of provisions are there with the sections and the subsections, but the basic insights must be given and be known to all the human resource students, because they would be shortly joining the workforce, and you should know yourself and you should protect yourself, should be an attitude of the students. So for this we are now talking about the statutory provisions which are concerning the employee welfare of a factory. Then of course the canteen facilities in which more than 250 workers are there should be there, and the rates and the composition and the stuff which should be present in the canteen, they are also being provided under the clause C of the Act, and no changes can take place in this regard because it is judicial in nature, and all the acts must be having abided by and all the provisions must be followed by all the organizations. Now then we have a shelter, restrooms and the lunchrooms. Now as a matter of fact, you feel a mental fatigue when you're working in an organization, so the shelters, the restrooms and the lunchrooms must be provided. So let us have a look on this. What are the provisions in relation to the shelters, restroom and the lunchrooms? In every factory wherein more than 150 workers are ordinarily employed, adequate and suitable shelters or restrooms and a suitable lunchroom which provides for the drinking water where the workers can eat their meals brought by them shall be provided and maintained for the use of the workers. The shelters or the restrooms or the lunchrooms must be provided under subsection 1 shall be sufficiently lighted, ventilated and shall be maintained in a very cool and a clean conditions. The state government may prescribe the standards in which the respect of the construction, accommodation, furniture and other equipments of shelter, restrooms and the lunchrooms to be provided under this section, and by notification in the official gazette exempt any factory or class or description of factories from the requirements of this section. So we have seen here that what kind of shelters, restroom and the lunchrooms they must be provided to the workers, and this lunchroom and the shelters, the kind of construction has to be there will also be decided by the provisions. The place must be cool, very clean, because that's the only time when they unwind themselves, they take lunch, they feel lighted and they feel that this is the time when they should have a complete rest. So it should be properly ventilated, lighted and all the basic provisions which are mentioned in the Act must be abide by all the organizations. Then we have a crèche. In every factory wherein more than 30 women workers are ordinarily employed shall be provided and maintained a suitable room or the rooms for the use of the children under the age of 6 years of such women. Such rooms shall provide adequate accommodation, shall be adequately lighted, ventilated, shall be maintained in a very clear and sanitary conditions and shall be under the charge of a woman trained in care of children and infants. The state government may make rules, that is the prescription, the location of the standards in respect of construction, accommodation, furniture and other equipment of the rooms must be provided under this section, requiring the provisions in a factory to which section applies of additional facilities for the care of the children belonging to women workers, including suitable provisions of facilities for washing and changing their clothing, and requiring the provision in any factory of free milk refreshments for both such children, and the requiring that facilities shall be given in any factory for mothers of such children to feed them at necessary intervals. Now see, there is a strong need for all the people because of the the conditions which are prevalent. There's so much of dearness in the market that a single income cannot move on with the family's expenses. So the women they join the workforce, although the proportion of the women when you see the Indian conditions is less as compared to the Western setup. But yes, slowly the women in India, they are coming out working, and they are working like their male counterparts, but the traditional and the stereotype role of the women is still vested in their nature, that yes, it is the prime responsibility of the women only to take care of the children and the other household work. Whatsoever the qualification of the women is, and whatsoever the spectrum and the domain of the women is, the vision is, but yes, she cannot overgo and forego the responsibilities of the household. So in the backdrop of the Indian cultures, we have the facilities for the crèche, and of course the children which are less than 6 years of age are extended this kind of a facility, and the women workers, if they are more than 30, so this kind of a facility must be provided by every organization which is having the female workers of X number, and such rooms and what compositions they have and what kind of staff must be kept to take care of the crèches also must be, the women in charge must be there for the crèches, and she should be properly qualified and certified by the government institution in terms of taking care of the infants and the children. And of course the facility for the milk and the basic changing aspects and the changing domain like diapers etc. must be available in that particular area, so that she does not face any kind of a problem when she is taking care of her children. And the facilities of the milk must be there, because the children need the feeding of the milk after every interval, so this must be provided in the crèche. So then the next important statutory provisions relating to the employee welfare is the welfare officers. In every factory wherein 500 or more workers are ordinarily employed, the occupier shall employ in the factory such number of welfare officers as may be prescribed. The state government may prescribe the duties, qualifications and the conditions of the officers employed under the subsection 1. Then we have the Plantation Labor Act of 1951. This is also very important and it entails all the provisions relating to the safety and the employee welfare aspects of the Indian workers. So the Plantation Labor Act 1951 includes the following provisions, that is the canteen, crèche, recreational facilities. In the canteen under section 11, the state government has empowered to ask the employers to open the canteens in plantation employing 150 workers or more to make rules for working and maintenance of the canteens. Now this particular type of the number is mentioned by the state government, because otherwise it will not be lucrative enough to maintain the particular types of canteens, because you have to have the number of people also to be present. So as we see and move on with the presentation, you must have seen in all the kind of statutory provisions the number is mentioned. In case of the crèches also the number of the female is present. In case of the crèche and other restrooms also the number of people are mentioned. This is basically for the cost factor of the organization that they must be abide with, and there has no bypassing of such acts is allowed, and all the provisions have to be completely followed. Whether it is announced by the state government or the central government, the act is act, and the judicial supremacy forces us to adopt everything which has been passed by the Indian government and the Indian parliament every now and then, and the provisions which have been passed by the central and the state government of India. So next is your crèche. The employer must provide and maintain a suitable rooms for the children where the number of workers is more than 50 or the number of the children of the women workers is 20 or more. So crèches are to be maintained in a very clean, safe and sanitary conditions and are to be run by the women trained in care of the children and the infants as per the law. So here also we see that the prime responsibility for the crèche is given to the employee, because she has the basic instincts of taking care of the children as such, and because of the culture of the India also, that she is automatically given all kind of household and the stereotype role of a woman, in which the prime responsibility again vests with the women. Next is your recreational facilities. Every employer to make the provisions in the plantation for recreational facility for workers and their children under section 13, and the next is your educational facilities. In every plantation where the children of the workers between the ages of 6 and 12 exceed the number 25, the employer is under obligation to provide the educational facilities may be specified by the state government under section 14. Now see, when you talk about the education aspects of the children of the employees, then of course again it is mentioned that the children which are more than 6 years of age and less than 14, the facilities for the education must be given to them, because education is the only factor which can really take the nation up. So that is why all these provisions are mentioned, so that when the worker is working in a factory, the education of the children are not ignored at any cost. Then we have a housing facility. It is the duty of the employer to provide and maintain the necessary housing accommodation for every worker and his family, and every worker along with his family members is entitled to a housing accommodation after 6 months of continuous service, whether staying inside or outside a plantation, and who has expressed a desire in writing to live in the plantation. The requirement of the continuous service of 6 months will not apply to a worker who is a member of a family of a deceased worker who was residing in the plantation. Under section 16, the state government has been empowered to make the rules relating to standards of housing and constitution of an advisory board with the representatives of the workers and the employers. So housing is one facility which is very pertinent in this regard, because otherwise they are not having those much of resources that they can maintain a particular house or purchase a particular house. So then it becomes the responsibility of the employer to provide them with the accommodation facilities, again with the strict provisions which are mentioned in the Act and which has been stated earlier in this part of my lecture. So the other facilities, let us talk about. The state government has given the power to make the rules relating to plantation employer and the workers under the umbrella, blanket, raincoats and other amenities for the protection of the workers from rain or cold under section 17 of the Act. And similarly, the welfare officers in plantation that employ 300 workers or more, the employer has to have the employer officers as prescribed under section 18 of the Act. Then we have another act which is very pertinent and important, and this is perhaps one of the acts in which the life of the workers is very risky, and anything can happen anytime to the mine workers. So let us have a look on what the Mine Act says of 1952. The Mines Act of 1952, it comprises the provisions relating to the health, safety and welfare of the workers in the coal, metalliferous and the oil mines. According to the Act, the term mine means any excavation where any operation for the purpose of searching for or obtaining the minerals has been or being carried on, and includes all the borings, boreholes, oil wells and accessory crude conditions, the plant shafts and open cast workings, conveyors or aerial ropeway, planes, machinery workers, railway, tramways, sliding workshops, power stations, etc., or any premises connected with the mining operations and nearby or in the mining area. So here we have seen the particular type of the people which are included in the mines. So it is basically all those people who are engaged in the excavation of the minerals from the natural resources. They are all called as the mine workers. And of course, there are certain statutory provisions in this regard also which we need to be well versed with. So let us have a look here what this particular act states in relation to the mine workers. This act proposes the duty of the owner to manage the mines and mining operations and the health and the safety of employees in the mines. It also advises the number of the working hours in mines, the minimum wage rate and other allied matters. This act is administered by the Ministry of Labour and Employment through the Directorate General of Mine Safety, that is DGMS. DGMS is the Indian Government Regulatory Agency for Safety in Mines and Oil Fields. It conducts inspection and issues the competency test for the purpose of appointment to various posts in the mines, organizes a seminar, conferences on several facets of the safety of the workers, and the duty of DGMS is to lessen the risk of occupational diseases and injury to a person employed in mines and to persistently improve the safety and the health standards in the mining industry. So here we have seen that this act empowers the duty of the managing mines and the mining operations, and this is perhaps supposed to be the most risky aspect of the workers, because they are subject to any kind of a problem anytime, and any kind of problem can take place when you're working in the mines. So it can really cause and take a toll on their life also. So that is why all the provisions are mentioned, so that their life is safe, and all the safety and other issues are embedded in this particular act. So in order to accomplish this job, DGMS performs the following functions, and these functions are very important in this regards. Let us have a look on this. Basically, when you talk about the mines, proper periodic inspection is done, or it has to be done. Investigations of complaint and accidents must be taken prime responsibility of the people who are actually responsible for the operations of the mines, and then allowing the statutory provisions for maintaining the mining operations and laying down the protective measures, and also developing the safety legislative and standards must be there, and undertaking of the safety and the promotional initiatives through safety campaigns, awareness programs, and the workers who are participating in the mining activities must be done. And some kind of an awareness must be given to them that yes, the accidents can take place in this form, or it can take place in this type, so that they are well prepared and they are well protected when this kind of an untoward incidents happens with them. So if they have certain awareness in this regard, there will not be any kind of a problem. Then we have a Motor Transport Workers Act 1961, and I have tried to envelop as many acts as I could in terms of the employee welfare, because you have so many different occupations, and every occupation demands a particular type of an act. So whatever I could gather in this half an hour's time of the statutory provisions, I have done in this regard. So let us now talk about the Motor Transport Workers of 1961. The Motor Transport Workers of 1961 includes the following provisions. First is again the canteen, that is the food stuff and the number of the canteens and everything must be as per the law. Then about the restrooms. In every place wherein the motor transport workers employed in a motor transport undertaking are required to halt at night, they should be provided and maintained by the employer for use of those motor transport, and the number of the restrooms or any other suitable alternative accommodation must be provided to them. The restrooms or the alternative accommodation to be provided under subsection 1 shall be sufficiently lighted, ventilated, and the state government may prescribe the standards in respect of the construction, accommodation, furniture and other equipment of the restrooms or the alternative accommodation to be provided to them. Then of course we talk about the uniforms. The state government may by notification in the official gazette make rules requiring an employer of a motor transport undertaking to provide for the drivers, conductors, the line checking staff employed in that undertaking such number and the types of uniform, raincoats and other amenities for the protection from rain or cold. Then they should be paid to the drivers, conductors and the line checking staff by the employer an allowance for washing of the uniforms provided under subsection 1 at such rates as may be prescribed by them. And similarly, the medical facilities and the first aid facilities must be given to these kind of workers, which is very, very important. So I hope the provisions are very clear to them, and you have to do it in detail about the provisions of each and every type of worker, and whatever industry you join, you must know what kind of statutory provisions are there for you and how you can protect yourself. Thank you so much.
With this note, thank you ma'am, thank you so very much for giving us a very, very productive session, and today we discussed about employee welfare, and we believe that all the students who might have watched us would be benefited from the lecture. And we always say that we love your queries, and we always love to give answer to your questions. So dear friends, keep watching us and keep giving your feedback to us. You can give your feedback to us at info.cc@nic.in. We believe that we have a caller right now, so we would like to have the answer. First of all, we would like the caller to introduce himself. Hello.
Hello ma'am, my name is Pawan Giri.
Yes, please ask a question. Please introduce yourself and ask a question.
Hello ma'am. Firstly, there is my one request. Hello ma'am.
Yes, please ask a question.
Firstly, there is my one request.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, I want to say that please start your Vyas TV channel on DGS platform. Why do you not do so?
Definitely, definitely. Very soon the channel is going to be on air. We are making efforts so that we could start the Vyas channel very soon. So, do you have any question concerning to the subject?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Madam, my question is, Skill India is very good, but why we not provide them so much placement while there was huge opportunity available in service sector?
His question is regarding the skill development as the scheme is going on, and he wants to know why there are still not very much opportunities, though it's the government proposal and it will take time. What is your say on it?
Now see, when you talk about the Indian conditions, the India takes a lot of time to, even the statutory and the judicial supremacy is there, but the infrastructural problems, the information and communication technologies are not such prevalent in India. But yes, we are slowly on the growth road, and the progress is shortly going to take place. But basically what I feel is that there is a complete unawareness of what skill development is and what are the basic provisions, how you can take up, and people do not know about the opportunity. So my request is to first, because everything is placed on the website of the government, you should download the complete document of the skill development, understand the basic provisions, and of course then lot of provisions are there and lot of infrastructure facilities are going on. So I hope shortly India would be on the growth process and the success is not very far. But yes, we all Indians have to support this kind of a movement, and whatever he is doing is definitely going to take us to the top. And there is a problem from our side also that we do not know and we do not have the complete awareness. The Indians have a lot of problem in relation to becoming a critique. Whosoever is working, they start complaining about everything. But yes, your question is very pertinent, and I would like to answer in this regard that yes, we have to understand the scheme very nicely. We have to understand the basic problems, try to uproot them, try to highlight this on the media also and on such good channels which you are watching us, so that it goes to the right ears and the right kind of action can take place. So it was a very good question, and thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Mohan Giri, if I'm not wrong, who have asked the question, and you have pointed out a very good thing over here, that we first need to understand the things,
Yes.
because the things or the programs or the policies, the schemes which have...
And what I feel is that Indians are unaware of it. So you first have to spread the awareness that what skill development is all about. You have to understand the basic provisions of the skill development. You have to see what kind of problems are coming, and the infrastructural problem have to be rooted up, and shortly we are going to adapt kind of a skill development, and the day is not far that we can also become a superpower.
Definitely, what is being served to us and what actually we want, we have to make balance in between.
Yes. There's a gap also which has to be bridged.
And it is we who are making, who are going to make these plans, schemes and policies successful. So we have to go in hand to with each other as well as with the policies also. And dear friends, we also wish you to have a very good balance, a very good reputation with us. That is, we want you to keep writing to us, keep asking questions, keep giving your feedbacks. As we always said, that your feedbacks are very, very important for us. So as I already mentioned, you can give your feedback on info.cec@nic.in, and we hope that you have liked today's lecture. We would be meeting again very soon and would be conducting more sessions under the series Human Resource Management. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much.